The date is Friday, August 19th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. Today, we're throwing it back to hot summer days and cool, shady spots. School was closed, and that only meant one thing to our adolescent minds. The world was ours to conquer. And by the world, I mean the cul-de-sac. Join us as we re-explore a series that is all about that little world we made our own, the colorful characters who live there, and the sweet treat called a jawbreaker. We are talking Ed, and Eddy. So, enjoy! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain This!
As always...
Dang you, I did it again!
I forgot.
You're just a wild card, Patrick.
You added something. You can do it now. You can do it now.
Woot.
Love it. Love the enthusiasm, the energy.
I had a bit set up that I was going to do kind of like this like NPR, like morning talk show, like college campus radio voice. But the much better bit is the fact that Pat doesn't know what an air horn sounds like.
That's fair.
Give it a go. Give it a real go. What's an air horn sound?
Woot.
No, come on. Have you ever heard an air horn in your life? What's it sound like?
Sounds like No.
That sounds like a 1960s Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
I think before you went bump, maybe. But
I don't even remember.
Michael, do you want to tell him what does an air horn sound like?
At a bare minimum, an air horn at the very least sounds like pew, 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 and then you can go even like bow, 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 bow.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's kind of expectation for next week, okay, Pat?
Yep.
All right.
Practice it. Get back with us. But enough bullying Patrick, because he was so nice as to prepare a topic for this week for us. His first ever topic on the show. So I'm gonna throw it over to the baby boy. Pat, you got a topic for us this week?
Was I supposed to prepare a topic? Oh shoot.
Well, we've already done that joke. Come on. Everyone's told that joke on here.
Yeah, we're 100 something episodes in.
Okay.
I think we ran through that joke in the first 3 months.
All right. So yes, I did prepare a topic today, and that would be this awesome show that I watched as a kid. So, hey everybody, what I'm going to talk about is one of my top 5 cartoons of all time. This is an animated comedy television series created by Danny Antonucci for our Cartoon Network. It ran from 1999 to 2008 with 6 seasons, 69 episodes, and 1 movie. I'm excited to talk to you guys today about Ed, and Eddy.
Nice. We
gotta hype it up.
I agree that one of the best cartoons of all time.
Yeah, for sure. One of the most thought-provoking cartoons of all time, too, because the world has many holes, Ed boy. That alone shakes me to my core still.
That episode by itself was so creepy, like that they could cut holes in the fourth wall breaking stuff. That again, that's just like one of the many episodes that Ed, and Eddy had. And when you looked into Danny Antonucci, I don't know if you guys and how familiar you are with him.
I'm
A little
sorry.
familiar.
We kind of look like a live action cast of Ed, and Eddy.
Please tell me I'm Eddy. I'm joking.
Okay, let me try to distinctly remember which Eddy is which.
Eddy is the short one with the 4 hairs.
So there's Ed, there's
ED.
Eddy, and then there's Double D.
Yep.
So there's Ed, Eddy, and Double D. I think Patrick looks most. This is for our visual listeners out there, so you can get kind of an image in your head. I think Patrick looks most like Ed. Eddy. No,
right.
Patrick is Eddy.
There
Sorry,
you go.
Patrick is Eddy. I'm personally going to take the reins of Double D. And I think that kind of rounds us out.
Yeah.
With Michael being Ed.
I'll take it.
Arguably the best character, the best ad.
I do agree with that.
He is strong, by the way. So that's what kills me is Ed is one of the strongest characters to pretty much ever exist
Yeah.
in cartoons.
Yeah, I could see him totally taking on Goku.
I bet you One Punch Man.
Yeah.
That's insane.
He's absolutely crazy. I would never want to mess with him. Just some of the things that he's done. So we'll get into it later. There's an episode where he pretty much goes around and sleepwalks and eats stuff. And like the amount of stuff that he eats is just crazy and all the other stuff. But anyways, kind of getting into Danny Antonucci. So he is the creator of Ed, Edd n Eddy. So that being said, Danny Antonucci is also known for Lupo the Butcher and Cartoon Sushi, as well as I don't know if you guys have ever worked or heard. I think it's like Metal something. I'm trying to remember the name.
Metal. What's the anime? It was on Adult Swim, right?
No, not that one. I don't think.
No, okay.
I think
Pure Metal Alchemist was what I was thinking. Sorry.
I wish, man. That's cool. I'll come to it later, but it's not a big deal right now. But again, he's got some pretty good credits behind his name. So Danny Antonucci is a Canadian writer as well as director, producer. He's known for, again, the things that I mentioned. He's a winner of a Leo in 2000 for Ed, Edd n Eddy, for A Glass of Warm Ed. And for the viewers that don't know what episode that is, it's following the gang as they go around the cul-de-sac and watch Ed sleepwalk and eat everything within the cul-de-sac.
I remember that one.
I do remember that one too. Yeah.
It was a crazy episode, and I rewatched it just to see which one it was, and I love it. By the way, the adult jokes still hold up even today.
Oh yeah, I mean, like any of the scenes with the Canker sisters now have a whole new context.
Here's what I was going to talk about. Antonucci has worked for the Flintstones, worked on Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show. He also worked for a feature movie called Heavy Metal.
Heavy Metal. Yeah, I know which one that is.
So I'll get into this a little bit more, but Antonucci's parents are originally from Italy. So growing up, he had a little bit of different customs and understanding. So the character Rolf, is kind of his homage to his growing up, but he didn't want to do it as Italian because I guess he had done something with Lupo the Butcher that had made a lot of Italians mad in the past. So he stayed away and then made a little bit better with that being coming from Rolf. But going from there, so just to go into about the show a little bit, Danny's first pitch on the idea was to Nickelodeon, but they wanted creative control. So he brought the idea over to Cartoon Network, where the person he pitched actually grew up with people who were both the same name as her. So two other people with the same name. So she was instantly hooked on the idea. So he got a green light from there. The show follows three middle school aged friends with the same name as their interaction, or the same name as they follow through the neighborhood and the interactions that they do with their unsuccessful scams, and then getting up to their hijinks as well. The styling is derived from a child's point of view. The backgrounds are more kind of like a boring block or blobs of color. The creator stated that he remembers not really looking too much into things as a child and just remembered colors.
Nice.
So before we get into the characters, which one is who are your guys' favorite characters?
I always enjoyed Plank and his owner, whose name is now escaping me. What was his name?
Oh gosh, it wasn't Jimmy.
Nope.
Not Kevin.
Not Kevin. What was this guy's name? Do you know, Pat?
It's Johnny 2x4.
Johnny. It was Johnny. Yeah, Johnny and Plank. I always liked them because they were always the ones who were like the most laid back and chill. Like they were the ones who never got. I say they, like Plank was a real character. I guess to an extent
He was.
Yeah, actually was real. He had a character sheet. They literally gave him a character sheet because Antonucci didn't want people putting like different smiley faces or different faces on his character.
Yeah, he
No,
just
so
had
it-
one face.
He had to be on model at all times.
Exactly.
But in all of the classic formula of Ed, Ed and Eddy, where they come up with a scheme and they try to make money so they can buy Jawbreakers. That's obviously the plot. But
Yeah.
in all of those, all of the neighborhood kids got super pissy or would be like assholes when they realized that they got tricked. But Johnny was always just like, I had a good time today. Just skipped on home, the little weirdo.
Oh my gosh. So that's that I watched one of the episodes recently, and you were talking about Johnny and how he kind of just has a lackluster nature. The Christmas episode, which is one of my favorite episodes, and we'll get into that a little bit later. He literally goes in, realizes Eddie's trying to scam him, and then kicks him down this like 5-mile long sled of ice. And I'm like, where does this even come from?
That's
And
wild.
Again, the fact that this house was literally all ice inside of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But so the characters of the show are, of course, the Ed boys, Ed
Boy.
D, and Eddy. Johnny 2x4 and Plank, can't forget him. Naz, Rolf, Jimmy, Sarah, Kevin, you dorks.
Yeah.
Um,
He was the douche canoe who always rode his bike around.
yeah, and it looked like he read it like a Harley, or wrote
Yeah.
it like a Harley, and it would go.
Because he had a baseball card in it, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was a baseball card. It was more just like the animation of him like taking off, like him spinning his tires and stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy. But the last characters in the show are May, Lee, and Marie Canker.
The Canker sisters.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I have this really weird memory of Ed and Eddy being trapped in what was essentially feet restraints, and their socks were taken off.
Yep.
And then the Canker sisters like played footsie with their bare feet. As a kid, I was just like,
It's this show. I'm telling you, it's hilarious, but it's almost like Ren and Stimpy level of like. Some of the
I mean,
things-
like one of the scenes that still sticks out to me is like when they get trapped in their trailer at the trailer park, and I don't remember which one it was. It was the blonde one who had the crush on Ed. Just like sneaks up behind him and pulls him into the closet and
It's
gives him
May.
a big old holy schmoly 9,000.
holy schmoly 9,000. What?
Yeah. That's what Ed like says as soon as she pulls him in. You hear like kissing noises, and you hear Ed just go, "Holy schmoly!" Give him the holy schmoly 9,000.
Sweetie
Yuck.
swag, what's in the bag?
Yeah.
What?
So the first episode that ever aired, season 1, episode 1, the first they like dress Ed up to look cool.
Oh
And
yeah.
And
one of
he
the
says,
things-
"Swiggity swag, what's in the bag?"
and I
Yep.
today say this all the time.
So wiggity swag, what's in the bag? I love that guy so much.
He really is the best character in the show, if we're being honest.
He is.
Yeah,
He carries the show.
agreed.
Literally.
Strong boy.
He's a strong boy. So this show was actually one of the last shows to be hand drawn on Cartoon Network.
Like cell shaded, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But just to bring up the cast list here, so Eddy is voiced by Tony Simpson, most known for his roles in Ed, and Eddy. Matt Hill is most known for, again, Ed, and Eddy. Sam Vince, who plays Double D, however, has a list of credits, my guys. Yeah, so Ninjago, he was in Ninjago, Crypto the Super Dog, Baby Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry Tales, and the list, if you go to his IMDb, is crazy.
He was like one of those people that was a voice behind all of like our favorite shows when we were kids.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But knowing that these guys are all Canadian, I mean, again, Ananucci is also Canadian, so it's kind of funny just to see how much they had voiced. So that being going kind of continue from here. So we talked about the cast a little bit. Do you guys have any takes on like the characters themselves and like the developments, or do you have like any questions you think that that they like where they came from in the way of characters?
I think for me, like one of the best things that the show does is it is so clear in who, like, the personality of each of these characters, and it abides by the classic formula of no matter for like a long running kids cartoon, no matter what actually happens in the show and what character growth the characters experience, at the end of it all, they're still the exact same character that you knew from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's like you can always, no matter what episode you're watching, you don't have to watch it in order. You know that Eddy is going to be the little scumbag that he is. You know that Ed is going to be the big dumb idiot, and Double D is going to be the nerdy straight man of the group.
Yeah, I think one of the other really cool things that this show does is it takes the time to really establish the relationships between the characters to where you kind of have an in with every episode that you watch. Like, for example, Sarah is Ed's little sister, right?
Yeah.
And Sarah and
Jimmy
are best friends. There's a little bit of a romance there, right?
I don't remember that.
I think it was more protective relationship, like that's her baby brother almost.
Yes, something like that. And then you had like Sarah and Kevin had this sort of on again, off again thing, but all of them had a crush on Sarah. Or not,
Naz,
sorry,
Naz.
not Sarah. Naz. Replace Naz with every time I just said Sarah, except for when I was talking about Jimmy. But like there's this whole dichotomy and like society of these kids in this cul-de-sac, and because there's so many stories between them, like this whole show happens in a cul-de-sac. Yeah. Like if you live in suburbia, you know kind of what it feels like to have friends who live in a cul-de-sac, and it's not that big, but this show makes it seem so big. Like the cul-de-sac is this giant place.
Yeah, that's one of the things you pointed out, Patrick, early on. It's like this show is from the perspective of kids.
Yep.
And it does such a good job of portraying that.
Yeah.
And I like that just because he did a good job. I would say Danny Iannucci did a really good job of doing that and making sure to portray. And that's why I felt, I guess, as a kid, more like that we're just one of the gang, that we're just like watching them do their crazy stuff every day, like almost to the point where I'm like, well, maybe I want to run a scan so I can get some jawbreakers, bro.
Yeah,
but those jawbreakers had no purpose being those like looking at
the giant ones that like the only other ones I had seen before that were like the ones that were the size of like a quarter or something.
Yeah.
But then it's like you see that and it's like there's no way those actually exist. Turns out go to like a local candy store, like an old fashioned one.
They make them big, but they don't make them the size of your head big.
Well, but that's the thing though, is I feel like if we're talking about this written from the perspective of kids, like if you're a little kid, it feels like it's that big in your mouth. That,
you know what? Well, you can't fit it in your mouth. That's the like big part is that in Ed, Edd and Eddy, their like whole side of their face would stretch out, and like the ear would be like way over here. They just have the giant. Yeah, so like it looked like something you wanted, and you watched Ed, Edd and Eddy try to get it so many times that you were like, I want that too.
See, that's crazy. But the thing, as Alex was talking about, how the scenes like take place in different places, like there was a river episode. I don't know if you guys remember that, where like they're going down a creek and they have this like slapped together river barge kind of thing where they're taking people on a cruise. And Ed's Double D sitting there playing. I think it's called the Steel something. But it's kind of a funny episode. But it feels like the block or the cul-de-sac goes on forever and ever.
Yeah. Well, hey, use cartoon logic all you can. Make that shit feel like it's like 1,000,000 miles long, like it's the size of Ohio. Why not?
But it is a great show. But I kind of just go from here. Talking about, let's get first Alex's take on this show.
Just as a whole?
Just on a whole, what like your thoughts, favorite episode, kind of stuff from like around that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this show. I mean, as a kid, it was almost inspirational, weirdly, as to like how creative I could be, and their schemes always involved these like crazy things that Double D would invent as like different sort of, you know, quote unquote scams. But most of the time, they were just like cool things that like you paid a quarter to experience. I always love this show. It's kind of hard to nail down a favorite episode, but I think one of my favorites is there's an episode where Ralph is feeling homesick, right? So the big scheme is just to convince Ralph that he's back at home. And like that's such a good episode. I don't think it leads to a jawbreaker. Or maybe Ralph has a bunch of jawbreakers and they're trying to convince him to share them or something, but that's one of my favorite episodes for sure because that puts that kind of creative spin that they have to like the max as they're trying to build this entire world for this one guy.
See, I can't remember, but I think that was not like done out of the selfish cause. I think they were trying to get him maybe like to give them money to eventually get a jawbreaker. That might have been, but I think that one might not have been not as selfish.
Yeah, every once in a while they throw one of those at you.
Yeah, but then Eddie's always crazy, and again comes to the point where they never learn, or he doesn't learn.
Right.
Double D and Ed are perfect. Like I feel like if you didn't add Eddie into this, that Double D and Ed would be involved with everybody very like.
Well, I think one of the things that I really like about Eddie's character is that, and we might talk about this later on, but is the like overhanging dichotomy that he has with like the concept of his brother and who his brother is. And that's one of those things that we see so many times throughout the episodes. It's like, oh yeah, my big bro is the coolest guy ever, and he is like got all this stuff, and it's like the more you learn about his big brothers, like his big brother's just like a loser. Like
his big brother eventually does come back in an episode, and it's like nuts.
Yeah, because isn't he off at like college or something?
Yeah, I think he goes to college and he comes back. But the big like weird Eddy fact is that like when his brother left for college, he like wallpapered over the door to his room or something and like locked the door to his room, and he was never supposed to go in the room, and then they find the like wallpaper and they like go in the room, and it's like this weird, it kind of had that feel of like finding a mummy's tomb. Like it was this like uncovering something secret that you weren't supposed to know about, and it kind of painted Eddie's brother as this like mystery that when you finally do meet him, you're like hugely disappointed to find out that he's just a bigger version of Eddy.
A bigger version and a big jerk. I mean, like, so fun fact, he is the only adult that ever actually appears like full frame other than some hands here and there. But yeah, at the very end, he's just such a jerk to Eddy, which is terrible.
But I mean, it also explains why Eddy's such a jerk to everybody else.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the thing is, he thinks his brother's the coolest person in the world, and so he wants to be exactly like him. But yeah, no, I love that character aspect. But as far as like favorite episode goes, there's two that always stick out in my brain. It is the one that is like life is full of many holes, Ed boy. Like it's that episode. It's like I think it's called like the Ed's break reality or something. And then the other is the one where they turn Jimmy into a sumo wrestler.
I
remember that explicitly because the sound effect of Jimmy whenever he like gut bust someone like as a sumo wrestler just is still stuck in my brain to this day. It's like
is that when they like hypnotize him or something?
No, what it is I think they just convince him that he's gonna be like popular and strong and everyone's gonna love him because people love sumo wrestlers, and the entire time it's a scheme by Eddy to try and make money off of him becoming a sumo wrestler.
Guys, I really think Jimmy had a crush on Sarah and Sarah didn't reciprocate it, because I also remember Sarah having a crush on Double D and there being a love triangle there.
I think what you're thinking of was because it was never one of those things where it like explicitly shown as like a romance thing.
No.
It was one of those things where like Jimmy was like, "That's my friend.
Yeah.
You're not going to take her away from me."
Yeah, that might be it. Maybe it was just the vibe.
Yeah.
So
I completely forgot that Sarah had a crush on Double D, though. That's hilarious.
It was pretty bad. So, do you know where Jimmy got his headgear from?
No, is this like well, he had buck teeth, didn't he?
So apparently, according to the show the show writers, right? He got it because of a scheme gone wrong, where they gave him not like a real jawbreaker, and it screwed up his teeth.
Oh, that's right.
Oh my gosh!
I remember
really?
this now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's one of those things where it makes you feel so bad for him.
And I'm like, and Jimmy's still too nice to Eddy for that. I was like, I would be livid.
Well, isn't the whole thing with like his relationship with the Eds is that he's going to tell on them to Sarah?
Yes.
And because it's one of those things like Ed might be the strongest character in the show, but he's probably actually second strongest to Sarah.
Yeah, I mean they come from the same loins, so
yeah.
they both have ridiculous strength. The amount of times that Sarah's just beat up on Eddy, I bet you is a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean they went like full on like showing that looked like she had like rabies or some shit, just going nuts.
And there she's snarling.
Yeah. But no, so those are the two episodes that stick out to me the most.
For sure. By the way, the amount that they sexualize Naz is kind of
that's gross. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, you don't really know it until you get back, and you're like, whoa.
It's one of those things. It's not like explicitly sexualizing. It's like the insinuation of sexualization, and that's where it's just kind of like, I understand what you're going for, but this just feels a little over the top.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know if a show like this could ever be written and like come out today. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, like, well, actually, I don't know. Because even now I'm like thinking back to like a lot of the jokes and stuff that were on shows that came immediately after this, like Chowder or Adventure Time. Like a lot of those were like definitely not as like overhanded or heavy-handed with it, but even to that aspect, kind of like what you said earlier, like Ed and Eddy can a lot of times have like a Ren and Stimpy kind of vibe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even in comparison to Ren and Stimpy, Ed and Eddy is tame as can be.
I think it could, and I think the reason why is because this show always made sure to let you know these guys were bad. They're assholes and they never get what they want. So they were never like, these are the cool kids, you should be like them. It's like, look, they don't win. These guys are jerks. They're, misogynistic. They're greedy. They're selfish, and they don't win. Yeah. Mostly I'm talking about Eddy because he's the leader of the three, but
because he ropes Double D and Ed just follows along because he's Ed.
Yeah.
But because every time there's a scheme, it's something like that. But so the episode where they or go to a sprinkler party in the backyard, and they wear a bathing suit that are like way too small.
Oh yeah.
That episode was inspired by Danny Antonucci and his life of actually living through something like that, where his bathing suit was too small and he got super embarrassed and wrote it to life on there. It's there's a couple stories like that where it's just like stuff that he directly pulled from his life. But
yeah, I feel like you could talk about like scenes from any episode ever of Ed, and Eddy, and you'll just immediately get from me like a reaction of like, oh my god, yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Can I hit you with another one, Michael?
Do it.
Do you remember the inside of Double D's bedroom, everything being labeled with Post-it notes,
Yep.
and him just being super specific about where everything went.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
That also was from Danny Antonucci's life. So his parents would leave Post-it notes throughout the apartment to talk to him.
I hate that so much. But I remember that. I think it was Rolf. His family kept plastic wrap on all the furniture. Had the old timey TV with the little like turn knob selectors for the channels. It's like, it's weird how much of this show that I think we all still remember. But I think that is also attributed to the fact that like when we were in elementary school, when the show was on, it was on for 2 hours at the like after school prime time time slot for everyone. And so it's one of those things, first thing you do, come home from school, turn the TV on, it's always set to Cartoon Network, and it's just cool. You're watching Ed, and Eddy for a few hours and you're having a great time.
I used to have to hide the fact that I was watching Cartoon Network with my parents. So back in the day, and I think they still do this, they have the little Cartoon Network symbol in the bottom right hand corner.
Yeah.
I had jerry rigged something up where it like a coaster had covered it. So that my mom, and she was like,
subtle,
it should play through, and it never happened, and I was able to watch it, but she realized one day because it changed corners.
Oh yeah, they moved it from bottom right up to top left.
Yep.
What? When did that happen?
That was like, oh god, that was like early, like 2007-ish, like 2006, 2007-ish, I think.
I don't remember that at all. I always remember it being in the bottom corner.
Yeah.
What Cartoon Network logo do you guys remember? Mine's
I,
the full black and white Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
I remember that one, but I also remember when they first switched it over to the CN.
Mm-hmm. Just
And
the
that,
CN.
Yeah, and that was right near the end of my Cartoon Network watching days, except for obviously Adult Swim. That still stayed on whenever I was trying to go to sleep at night, watching Family Guy, Adventure, not Adventure Time, but Futurama, and oh god, what was some of the other shows? There was
we could do an entire episode on Adult Swim.
Oh my god, that's a great idea.
Oh, Michael has it now.
Yep.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, it was that time in television where kids shows were just mature enough that everybody still found them entertaining. Like that era where you didn't watch a kid's cartoon and go, well, this is stupid. Like you would watch it and it'd be engaging for no matter what age. That's why there's still like rewatchability with it. Like you could easily sit me down. I would watch season after season of that.
That is a point I was going to get to here soon. But the thing was, my dad and I, so there was like, I think new episodes would come out on Fridays. So we'd go to we go to town to get food, and we come back, and then we'd watch Ed, and Eddy until like, I don't know, until the episode was over, and then we'd switch over to the robot battles on Discovery or whatever it was at the time. But
oh yeah, I think that was Discovery.
BattleBots, yeah. So that being said, my dad was definitely the one that pushed me to watch the show because he liked it just as much as I did. So, and I don't think. Well, besides The Simpsons, I guess The Simpsons were adult cartoons at that time.
I always went to bed before The Simpsons because I was a good little boy. Just kidding. I would go upstairs and watch Adult Swim in my room. Yeah, what a staple of our childhood. Weird.
Yeah, and I do distinctly remember too. Like my dad, like also would sit and watch Ed, and Eddy with me. Like it was. Like I remember not being very good at whistling, and my dad is an incredible whistler. And so every once in a while we'd be like in Kroger walking down the aisles or something, and he'd just break it out.
Nice.
And it would always be like, yeah.
That's Danny Antonucci, by the way, doing the whistles.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Talented motherfucker.
Dude, he's a crazy guy. So a lot of this stuff, it just kills me that he's super talented, and this is the only show he ever like actually like did. I was like, you could have done a lot more.
Yeah, because that was like like you were talking about earlier, this was like his one big show that he really had like full control over. Like,
Yep.
like you said, he had Cartoon Sushi, but I don't really remember anything about Cartoon Sushi.
I don't either.
Yeah.
He's got a very obscure art form, and I like, and the way his I guess his taste in general. I like, if you've ever like watched Luca the Butcher, it's pretty messed up. It's pretty dark.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
and I was like, so he goes from this dark kind of like format and then brings it into a comedy for a kids show, which he did, by the way, on a dare.
Love it.
And he the characters, he created the sketch, or he created it like while he was at a coffee shop or something, and then fully sketched it the next day of all three characters. So Ed and Eddy,
Incredible.
yeah, dude, he's super talented. But that being said, there is another thing that I wanted to talk about. So I don't know if you guys get into fan theory / lore very much, but
Absolutely.
there is, and I don't know if you've heard this one. This one's a pretty big one. But I want to get to the first one, which is
this is one of those theories, right?
Yeah. What's under Double D's hat?
Oh,
yeah. I remember having theories when I was a kid and be like, he's a smart one, so it's just got to be like his brain exposed or something.
What the fuck?
That's the most common one I've heard.
Yeah. I think there is like something in an episode where that comes up. And like
Sarah is under his hat at one point, and she didn't freak out. So I don't know if it's a brain. It's a hard.
I don't know. I think he's probably just got like dandruff or something. It's a kid show. He's just self-conscious.
So the one I've heard the most one was the one you talked about, where somebody thinks it's his brain. There's like a slew of other ones that I can't remember right now. But there is a frame where he actually doesn't have his hat on, and he just has a few hairs.
Yeah, just some hair.
Oh, buddy.
Just like Ed, or just like Eddy, rather.
Eddie
just has three hairs.
Yeah. At some points, it's like one. Somebody rips his hair out. But yeah, man, that was crazy by itself, because you never know, and then like nobody explicitly says it until I watched the video and they literally broke it down, showing it. But this one is crazy, and this one is like the one I'm about to talk about is like got its whole thing, and everybody's like super into it. And I even told my dad this, and he was like, "This is crazy."
I'm trying to remember because I think I know it, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I may chime in once it clicks.
Purgatory theory.
Oh, they're all in purgatory. Then that's why they all look like they come from different decades.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So I do have some information on this. It's kind of crazy. So
the cul-de-sac is purgatory theory. I remember this.
Yeah. So early 1900s to the 2000s, this would be explained why the year for the show is very hard to pinpoint, with multiple presidents. I'm trying to remember which one comes from which. Okay, so the first one is Rolf. Was the first to arrive in the 1900s. Weird to say. The theory goes that his family moved to Peach Creek in order to establish a farm on its land. Rolf died in 1903 when his family's farm animals stomped on him and trampled him. This was supposed to be the reason why he only has one cow and one goat and a few pigs and a few chickens. Not enough animals to cause a fatal stamping in the afterlife. So the next one to die after him was Johnny 2x4, your favorite. Came to the cul-de-sac not too long after Rolf's death. Having no friends, Johnny took a marker and drew a face on a piece of wood and dubbed it Plank. He died in 1922 after fighting a long battle with tuberculosis, 6 years before the discovery of penicillin. He took his friend Plank with him into the afterlife, and he was the last thing that he saw.
Sheesh.
Eddy came next. He was born in New York, but eventually moved to Peach Creek during the Great Depression era, always trying to get a quick buck. He's always sets up the scam to get money from the cul-de-sac kids in an effort to escape from poverty. He spent his whole life, which he split his whole life in. Eddy didn't have a proper father figure since his real father abandoned him and his mother shortly after he was born. With this came his big bro he adored and idolized, very much despite the latter abuse in nature. After his scam went awry, Eddy was chased by the swindled children of the cul-de-sac and ran away and jumped in a lake where he ended up drowning. So also,
All right.
so the tongue, so the different types of tongues were also explained in this, like that they're blue, and like, you know, I guess like the thing is that if their tongues are blue, like somebody's dead. So Danny Antonucci chimed back with this and was like, actually no, so it's supposed to be the different flavors of like the jawbreakers and stuff, because the kids are always eating jawbreakers.
No, they never eat. Well, Ed, and Eddy never eat jawbreakers. So their tongue should be
I
normal.
remember them getting them once in the entire show.
And they actually got to eat them, or did they roll down a hill? Because I remember an episode where they got them and they rolled down a hill.
I think you're right.
They did not get to actually enjoy them.
Did you? Okay, so there's an episode where that jawbreaker bank is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that frame is Chernobyl, and the jawbreakers are green.
Oh my god!
What?
Yeah, if you look up a picture, it's crazy.
Oh, I hate that. That's too real.
I don't like that.
So here's the next ones to die. So So Ed and Sarah were the next to arrive to the cul-de-sac. Their father died fighting in World War II. As a result, their mother became distraught, disconnected. To cope, Sarah developed her bossy attitude, trying to fill in the parental role. Again, for their mother. Ed shut the world out and developed a fantasy world out of his comics. Monsters, you know how he's an addiction to his monsters.
Yeah, there's Edzilla.
Edzilla, man. So if you look up like the characters for Ed, Ed, and Eddy, Edzilla is the background for Eddy or for Ed.
Incredible. Edzilla.
Edzilla. Dude, when he went up that tree or was like around the tree house or whatever.
Yeah.
And the monster, that was crazy. And he stuck what kills me is like, I remember being disgusted about Ed's room in general, but the amount of like, he literally stuck him to the wall with cereal.
One of the things that I remember is the scene of him just like a snake just eating in one large bite, consuming his entire bed, and him just becoming the shape of his bed.
What was that toy? Do you remember the wind-up toy that like ate his bed? That guy's mattress budget had to be crazy because like his beds were being destroyed or eaten for like every episode.
Yeah.
So, by the way, they die in a freak car accident, both of them together.
Oh,
okay.
So Naz was born in the hippie era, noting that or like her hippie kind of laid back style, right? So she was a flower child, and then in the summer of 79, a serial killer escaped from a local asylum and made his way to her house, and then she was fatally killed.
There's no evidence of this.
I know.
There's no evidence of their causes of death. They're just coming up with gruesome ways to kill these children.
Oh, I know. Double D was born in the 70s, preparing to attend college from a young age, became a social outcast. He had died as a result from a gas leak caused from an explosion from a Bunsen burner from his chemistry set.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not? That's the way he died. Why not? I see no reason.
So Kevin died from the he was popular X Games in 1995. He died on his way to the hospital, I guess basically getting hurt from bike wreck.
Okay.
Jimmy was born in the 1990s. Jimmy eventually he basically died of another. So Jimmy died of an illness, and then the Concur sisters were different from the other neighborhood children. It's believed that they were actual demons that were sent to the cul-de-sac to torture the souls who didn't go to heaven. So like this theory, man, crazy. Thoughts?
No, that's nuts. All of that's crazy.
It's reaching, isn't it?
It's reaching because there's no solid evidence for anything anyone's saying. They're just saying stuff. That's like going. I think that Teletubbies is about what happens inside of the womb because there's a baby in the sun, and also because fucking they eat tubby custard. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to because this theory's dumb.
Well, it was one of those things where, like, for a while, it was a super popular thing to try and attribute like these horrible, awful backstories to
Oh, yeah.
cartoons. Like that was something that very commonly happened. But then you just got like freaking Adventure Time coming around and it's being like, okay, actually, like our entire like whimsical fantasy world is actually
Oh, it's
set in the back.
post-apocalyptic. Believe it or not.
It's post-apocalyptic, and we're gonna actually dive into the Mushroom War, which is actually just synonymous for just full-on nuclear explosions in wartime.
As a treat.
As a treat.
I thought you guys were going to go into the fact that it's actually he's in a coma and that his best friend is a dog and that's laying beside him. He's actually in a coma.
That's one of those fan theories, but I feel like Adventure Time does.
I thought they approved. Like
no. Adventure Time explicitly is like this is a post-apocalyptic. Everything that happens in this show is because there was a giant nuclear war in the past. Yeah, it's like that's where you get like Marceline was a vampire from before the war. The Ice King was a scientist investigating the crown who wore it too much.
You never get this shit about like SpongeBob or like Fairly Odd Parents, but you totally get it for everything that came out of Cartoon Network at that time. Like, Codename Kids Next Door has a very similar theory where it's like these are all like kids of abuse who have to escape their house, so they come up with a different world where they have control over the adults and so on and so forth, and they're constantly waging war against adults and like stuff like that.
Well, like, I think what it is like so many of these Cartoon Network shows have so many dark elements to them.
Right.
Like I'm trying, like Chowder is another one. There was the I can't remember the name, but the one where it's all about like eating candy. And they're like
Flapjack's
Flapjack. Yeah, like Flapjack is another one that's like pretty
really
dark. Yeah. It's just like I feel like it was Cartoon Network really just like pushing a bunch of shows that had these similar themes.
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah.
That one had also depressing. Anyway, back to basically the gist is every show on Cartoon Network has one of these weird theories, and the community of people who make them are incredible writers, and just the way they logic things out is impressive. But there's a step past where you're like, whoa, mind blown, to where you get to like, and it's right around when the facts don't support the physical material.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some there. Like when you talk about Rolf, you're like, okay, I see what you did there. And like even talking about like Eddy or Kevin, you can like kind of make those connections. But then it's just like, oh yeah, and Naz was from the 70s because she's super cool, and also she was murdered by a child serial killer. And you're like, what? How did you? How does that make any sense?
You came up with that because she's the only one who was like, oh, right on, man.
Yeah, she said, right on, man, and you were like, oh, she's clearly, a pothead or something.
Yeah, clearly she's a hippie. Clearly, and like not just like a modern day hippie, but like from the 60s hippie.
You know how Double D's so smart? Yeah, that's because he was getting ready to go to college when he got killed by a baseball bat. Flew out from a guy who hit a home run, broke his bat right in half, stabbed him right through the eye. That's what happened.
Swear to God.
So I actually did. In the meantime, I found a thing that was one of the original writers of Ed, and Eddy, who wrote the backstory.
Oh, take your time. I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
I actually went back and looked at a little post on that I found on DeviantArt from one of the original like writers and cartoonists for Ed, and Eddy, and they actually came up with the backstory for what is under Double D's hat.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
There's actual legitimate like
there's
answers.
A legitimate answer. It was never shown in the show though. I'll just read it in full. In Ed's old school, other students mercilessly targeted him in dodgeball, and after too many hits to the head, as he put it, he designed a dodgeball shooting cannon to retaliate. The resulting injuries to all of his classmates scarred him so much that any abuse he'd receive, like to his own person, was just over the top. And is what spawned his like ultimate pacifism. And what he uses to remind himself is he keeps a picture of him as a little child in handcuffs in front of a bunch of microphones from him apologizing to all of his classmates.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dark. Wow.
That's dark.
Now I understand the pacifism. So let me just wrap up with my favorite episode, and we can kind of go into the conclusion, and then pass it over back to Alex. So the my favorite episode is the Christmas special, which apparently you can't get on HBO, by the way, HBO Max.
Oh, is that like the one that you can't?
Yeah, so you can go watch it on YouTube for free. Literally, it's in a mix, and it'll just go down the episodes or just go down the scenes.
Good old
free.
casual YouTube piracy. Gotta love it.
Or you can go to Hulu and pay $50 a month for the live version to be able to see it. So that was my side note on that. But anyways, it's the Christmas episode. It's season 4, episode 21, if you guys want to check it out. This is my favorite episode. So this follows Eddy as he breaks into the attic to find his Christmas presents. That being said, they're all closed. He gets very frustrated about that and proceeds to have the idea that somebody's going to adopt him and he'll get their presents from one of the kids in the cul-de-sac. So basically follows him around as he's doing that. So this is where I was talking about earlier, where Johnny, his house was literally ice.
Yeah.
And so he goes to, I'm trying to remember, he goes to Ralph. And then Ralph's like got this like weird tradition and holiday about meats and hams, and he breaks out into this song about some guy and that he gives them meat and hams and all this other type of stuff. But also,
this is weirdly super nostalgic for me.
Dude, it's a great episode. So then Ralph kicks out Eddy, and so he continues to go to different places. I think he goes to next is Naz after he's gone to Johnny and Ralph. He goes to Naz's, and Naz was like giving him everything he wants. He's like, I think we have a few presents for you, man. And like, here's eggnog, and take a sip. And like, he opens the door, and like, this is the overtly sexual thing I was talking about earlier. And he's like sitting there shaking, like with the eggnog in his hand. And she was like, hey, here's mistletoe or whatever. Do you know, Eddy, what you do under mistletoe? And he spits out his eggnog, and she kicks him out of the house because she gets spritzed with eggnog.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows like any mysterious white substance in cartoons is an analogy for something.
Why adult men be like this?
I don't know.
So in the meantime, so the Concur sisters, this is kind of the B plot part of it, and they kind of converge at the end. So the Concur sisters have these 3 wise men hats, right? They all have crowns, and they go on this like adventure following. At the beginning of this, Eddy put his flashlight, hit a mirror, and then it made kind of like a North Star out in the sky. Cartoon logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're following the North Star, and they pick up Franks and cents and fur, like a fur coat. And I'm trying to remember what the third item was, but it was just like basically a ripoff of the 3 Wise Men story. So Eddy goes to Kevin's house, goes to Jimmy's house, gets kicked out of Jimmy's house by Sarah. Gotta love that again. And then goes to Kevin's house as like a latch-ditch resort. And by the way, if you guys haven't watched this show, you should definitely watch it. Kevin does not like them at all and continues throughout the show to not like them. So this was a last-ditch effort by Eddy. So Kevin gives him a box, and Eddy opens it up eagerly, like, oh my gosh, present. He gets a knuckle sandwich by Kevin. Cartoon logic. So Eddy gets knocked literally out of his shoes and wanders around in the cold. He ends up stumbling over to a tree in the middle of a park that's got this. It's got one light bulb missing or broken, and you can tell that. And Eddy digs into his pocket, pulls out one light bulb, puts it in there, right? And it lights up this tree, and it's like bright. And all the kids from the cul-de-sac come around, and here comes Double D and an angel costume. And then Ed is in a shepherd's costume, right? And then all of a sudden, Santa drops down a big old sack full of presents and then like flies off, right? Eddy, not learning from anything, takes off with the presents and runs away and puts himself in Rolf's bar. So this is where the manger scene comes in, right? This is the last part here. So they have an ensuing fight, and Ed and Eddy keep fighting over the presents or whatnot because Ed wants to give them back because he's a huge fan of Santa. They end up Ed ends up throwing the package or the bag out of the roof, and it lands next to the kids. The kids get a good Christmas and they get all their presents, right? And Double D is literally hanging from the ceiling in an angel costume, and Eddy is in the trough, and Ed is sitting there with his cane next to a sheep or a cow or whatnot, and in come the Canker sisters, and they're like, "We bring franks and cents and fur," and I was like, "This is a crazy way to end this." But then they end up closing the door, and it says, "Don't open until next Christmas." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And one of the last lines I heard from the Canker sisters, I was just shaking my head. It's like, "We're gonna kiss you, we're gonna kiss you, and not on the cheeks."
Yep. Go back to the good old Holy Schmoly 9000.
I don't like that.
I know, it's awful.
I don't like that at all.
Crazy episode. But I remember as a kid, those were like one of the episodes that stuck out the most. But,
yeah, I mean, it was stuff like that was like, hey, Christmas is here, you know? And it was like at the same time they would run those weird like commercials on Cartoon Network where it was all the cartoon characters coming together to sing like a Christmas carol.
Yep.
And you'd be like, it's Christmas.
Miss those days. But that's what I was kind of getting to in the conclusion here. This show gave me a lot of nostalgia for all the good memories of watching the show with my dad and just growing up with the coming home from school and watching it. You know, the art style that it and this the art style that brought this show alive, as well as it's not been really matched by other cartoons out there today. It's one of the last hand-drawn cartoons, like I said, but it still lives up to all the other animation styles out there. The hint of adult humor still makes it enjoyable to watch even today. And like I said, if you haven't watched this show yet, I do highly recommend it. And that, again, thank you guys, Michael and Alex, for both letting me talk about Ed, Edd n Eddy today.
And entertained. Awesome. Thanks, man. What a cool episode on a topic we had not thought of. Which is super cool to know that there's still even topics out there. But you like came to us last week with like this big ass list of topics, and we were like, "Geez," you're like, "Have you covered any of these?" We're like, "No." It's like this super long list. It was awesome. Let's get into a quick this after this short musical break. Be right back. And we're back. It's weird that like when I do quick thises, I have to like say, "Hey Alex, do you have a quick this for us?" And I have to say, "Yes, Alex, I do have a quick this," which I do, of course, have a quick this because I told you I would last week, and you know exactly what it's going to be. Anyway, let's get the timer up and going. I don't know if it's going to take a full 5 minutes, but heck, we could try. Ready, set, go.
Boom.
So this week, as you may have guessed, I'm going to talk about the banned, quote-unquote, episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a sort of sequel conversation to what we talked about last week. And it's not going to surprise you that in a show about terrible people, sometimes they cross the line to the point where they were no longer able to air those episodes. We're going to get into that today. Let's start with Season 4, Episode 3, called America's Next Top Patty's Billboard Model Contest. In this episode, Charlie accidentally makes Dee internet famous by publishing her private video diaries on YouTube. When Dee discovers her newfound fame, she tries to milk it by posting skits of her many racist characters in hopes that Saturday Night Live will pick her up. One of those characters include Martina Martinez. Dee is basically wearing a curly black-haired wig and very tan makeup. And in this episode, she describes her character as her name's Martina Martinez, and she is a streetwise Puerto Rican girl who's always quick with a sassy comeback. So that's where we're starting.
Woo!
All right.
All right.
That's a good start.
Yeah. Another one of Dee's racist characters makes a debut in this episode, Taiwan Tammy. I don't really feel like I have to get into who she is, but I will say Dee is in a straight black wig with large fake teeth, so great. However, the show does recognize how bad this is, and even Charlie and Dee, even Charlie, the dumbest character of all, admits Dee's characters are extremely racist. So, at least they're self-aware. Does that make up for it? I don't know. It still got canceled. Anyway, or it got banned, rather. The show's still going. The next episode is Season 6, Episode 9, Dee Reynolds, Shaping America's Youth. In Dee Reynolds, Shaping America's Youth, the episode is basically where the gang is introduced to a blackface character in their fan film, of popular Lethal Weapon films. They basically make Lethal Weapon 5. In the film, Mac wears blackface to portray Roger Murtaugh's character, originally played by Danny Glover. So there's that. Frank portrays an evil villain who is a Native American casino owner. The gang sort of discuss whether or not they should do reshoots to eliminate the use of Mac's blackface, but they ultimately don't. Dennis tells Mac, I seriously regret switching parts with you halfway through and letting you play Murtaugh in blackface. I feel like that was in poor taste in retrospect. So again, they're at least being self-aware about it. I will say, however, Mac disagrees, saying, I think it was in poor taste that you were doing Murtaugh in whiteface. So the next episode we're going to talk about is Season 8, Episode 2, The Gang Recycles Their Trash. In this one, we see jokes used in previous episodes. This includes a nod to Dee's racist characters, making it another episode that got dropped. During a scene where she wears much darker makeup on her face and wears pads to make her breasts and butt look more curvious, she basically inflames racial tension and points out that most sanitation workers are either black or Latino. So great.
Yay.
It's always D in every single one of them. In the Lethal Weapon ones, there's a lot of blackface because they keep, playing the part of Murtaugh, but it's always D who's like doing it repeatedly for no reason. I'm not trying to justify any of it.
No.
But that's what's happening. The joke is, though, they are terrible people, and that's why they don't see a problem with this. Let me speed run through two more. Season 9, Episode 9, The Gang Makes Lethal Weapon 6. You can kind of assume why that one got canceled. Guess what? They're using blackface again. Woohoo! Okay, Season 14, Episode 3 is called D-Day, and D-Day, D is in charge of what the gang does for a day. If they don't do everything she wants, she will tag on another day, giving the boys incentive to do what she wants. This episode was banned because Dee brought back, again, all of her racist characters banned from all episodes past. She forces Frank to play Martina Martinez, which means Frank's character is forced to wear brown face makeup. Meanwhile, Mac is forced to play Taiwan Tammy, an Asian woman who owns a massage bar. Of course, this is an example of yellowface with a costume consisting of cartoonishly large teeth and a black wig. It's always D. That's what we have to get down to. The reason why these keep getting banned is because D is racist, her character, and they don't shy away from telling you that. The good news is how this show always sort of loops or tiptoes around these, terrible acts is by saying, no, it's a part of the joke. We're self-aware. We know it's terrible. The reason we're doing it is because these are bad people. Like, it is a joke within a joke. At least that's how they explain it. If you're not cool with it, I totally understand that too. And it is an accurate and fair perception of the situation. Anyway, those are the episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia that got canceled. Thank you for listening to my quick this.
Absolutely.
Whew.
Another episode down in the books.
Down in the books. 125. Can you even believe it? Guys, I was gonna kind of hold off, but I'll say this now. We finally got an email, someone suggesting something that we should talk about, and it's like real,
Wow, okay.
which is like huge. And shout out to them. But we're gonna probably talk about that next month, and give them a shout out. Or maybe we'll ask them onto the show since they're the first person ever suggested anything. When they in their email they said, or have me on to talk about it, which also is fine. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Shout out to you if you're listening. You know who you are. Because you're the only one who's ever done it. Anyway, if you want to be the next person to give us a suggestion on something that we should cover here, because of course we are a podcast encapsulating all things entertainment, and we haven't done that yet. There are a couple of different ways that you can do it. The first and easiest way is to go to our website, www.entertainthis.net. Is it .net? Oh my god, I'm blanking. entertainthis.net/et-podcast. And scroll all the way to the bottom. That's it. If it's not, Google Entertain This and don't click on the one with the exclamation point. Or you can find us on Twitter. We are entertain_this. On Instagram, we are Entertain This Podcast. On Facebook, we are Podcast Entertain This. And as always, entertain us so we can entertain you, and you can entertain this. We'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.
Bye.
This episode was written by Patrick Frazier, with additional commentary by Alex Steele and Michael Savoya. Our showrunner and resident fact checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Rush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.